just share experiences. Just give that knowledge. Just everybody has some type of different experience. And I think that experience opens up exposure because as we start talking and you start telling me about your life and this person starts telling me about their life, I might hear something that piques an interest like, ooh, I never knew that thing was true or that existed. Can you tell me more about that? Because everybody, I think, has an innate nature to want to help someone in something that they're good at. You know, if I'm great at whatever, and somebody show and asks like, "Hey, I want to do that too," I'm gonna be open to. Okay, well, this is I can at least get you to where I'm at. If I'm at level 8, I can get you to an 8. I might know somebody who's at a 10. We can go meet the person at the 10 and both get to there, type of thing. So it's just sharing your experiences. Don't keep things to yourself.
What's going on, everybody? I'm glad that you all are here. The guest that we have coming up for you next is another dope brother, and he's a loving husband, great father, and the director for the creative services for the city of Philadelphia. In this episode, you'll get the chance to hear us grapple with various topics that range from marriage, fatherhood, single-parent households, and lastly, gatekeeping. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody. My name is Octavius, also known as the Urban Thinker. We're in full effect with season 2. We got another good brother with us today. We have a father, we have a husband, and we have a creative mind that a lot of people do not know about, but you'll get to know about him today. Hey, good brother, if you can introduce yourself, please do.
Sure. My name is Kyle Odum, and first off, let me just thank you. You may know him as Octavius, but I call him Oc B. Just want to shout out to him and thank him for inviting me onto this podcast. This is a brother that's doing some really good work, and it was just a pleasure and an honor to be asked. So hopefully we can create something that's exciting here today.
Thanks, brother. Love the flowers. I also want to thank you for being on, being flexible, understanding of how important this is to us as Black men, but also more important to the young Black men that we're going to be reaching out to as well.
No doubt.
Brother, we just going to kick it off real quick with the first question I got for everybody. What's one thing you love about being a Black man?
That's a deep question. Mm-hmm. That's a kickoff question. Just being Black is exciting in and of itself, in that it's just a naturally creative thing. How can I explain it? It's like you just feel excited about who you are and what you bring to the earth, as far as the natural rhythms, the natural abilities, the natural everything kind of creates and comes from being Black. And I'm trying to better explain it, but I just love it. Does it have its challenges? Yes, but I think the beauty of it and the knowledge and the wisdom that comes from being Black, knowing that the world started from us, in a sense of the first creators, the first to walk on the earth. It lets us know and makes us aware of the fact that we are just naturally great and gifted. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing I really love, because I see most creativity comes from people of color, people, Black people, the new styles, the new trends, the new maths, the new sciences, all of those things kind of started from us, and that's an exciting thing to know that, okay, I'm from that. And I know personally for me, looking back at my history as far as my father or my grandfather and the things that they were able to achieve. There's a lot of business ownership in my family line.
Mm.
And I'll look back at my dad, he has some great success in the things that he's done. And his dad, my grandfather, has some great things. And it only made sense once I found that out why I might have a natural interest to do business and to do creative things.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of comes from the generation before and the generation before and the generation before back to the beginning of time. It's like there's just a creative genes in Black people that we just want to create.
Yeah. I think that was great that you said that, because when you say Black people started here, began here, I think that's big for us to even hear, because we forget that. A lot of generations, it doesn't get passed down. So when you say we're the first, a lot of people don't really expect that. A lot of people don't even think about it. And I think that's one thing that us as the Black community need to understand, that we have a lot of smart people, we have a lot of creatives, we have a lot of people that create things. But as far as history being told, we do not get to see it. We do not get to hear about it. And I think I would add to the space of one thing I like is that we're all different. We're not a monolith. I know I said this to you before. We all look the same, but we all have different mindsets. We all have different things that we love to do. And I think that's one thing that people need to understand about us as Black people, but also Black men. Black men can be older, but also can be more creative than me.
Yeah.
And Black people Black men can be more athletic than me, and they can be younger than me. So it's a lot of things that a lot of people can have an understanding about as far as Black people. But I love that you said that we were the first. A lot of people not understand it and do not recognize that. I do want to go like a little deeper into, because you did talk about your dad and your grandfather. So we're going to go in the den with you. That's discovery, exploration, and navigation. So the first question is, when did you discover, or how did you discover your Blackness?
How did I discover my Blackness? Okay. Well, living in America, it's kind of brought to your attention from the very beginning. For me, I discovered that I was Black in kindergarten because I went to a predominantly white school.
Okay.
My mother wanted to give me the best possible education, and I went to through her sacrifice and struggles. I went through it was and it still is to this day, a really high end grade school, and to me it was just school.
Yeah.
But I realized I was like the only Black person in my classroom, maybe another one or two in the other corresponding classrooms. But I really didn't think about it other than the fact, oh, wow, I look different.
Yeah.
Because my mom wasn't one to be like, you're Black, you're different. She was like, you're a person first. And that's kind of where I was. And, obviously I had my family, and all my family looks like me, and all my mom's friends look like me, and all my neighbors in my neighborhood look like me. But then when I went to school, it was different. And, a class of 25 kids, one, maybe two Black people in that class, all the teachers don't look like you. But I think it made me a little bit more well-rounded, because it made me just see people as people first. So I never had that thing in life where it just made me more aware that everything was different. It made me more aware of the fact that, okay, everybody isn't Black. Like I said, my neighborhood was Black, my family was Black. But going to this school made me realize that, okay, it's different. And and because of the fact that it was a high-end school, it was a lot of Jewish people there. And the reason I say that is specifically because there were holidays that would come up and people were taking off, and I never heard of them. I'm like, what's this Yom Kippur thing? Or what's this Chanukah thing, as I was pronouncing it, because I pronounced it as it looked. I didn't know how to pronounce it.
That's true.
And then I saw one of my best friends at the time, clearly a Jewish individual, because he wore the little yarmulke cap, but I thought it was just how he rocked. Yeah. But I didn't see it, and I really didn't dig into it, because again, you're kindergarten, 5, 6 years old. So that's just, okay, that's my friend.
Yeah.
Names were different. I was around a lot of Joshuas and Trevors and Tanners, when my home had, Tyrones and, Malik's, which was different.
Yeah.
And it was at that point that I realized there might be something just different in the world, and I can see that's where I kind of recognized I was Black. And it wasn't a bad thing. It
Yeah.
just made me aware, okay, I'm different. And I brought different things, obviously, to the conversations. I mean, what are you saying in first and second grade? But I just brought different things. The way I dressed or the way um, I presented myself was just different. But one of the things that I did notice that really, and it still sticks to me this day, like my mother, she was a probation officer.
Okay.
So she worked in the Philadelphia district. And that's what she did. So she was in the court system. She dealt with juveniles, she dealt with judges and all of that kind of stuff. And then as I was talking to some of my friends, like, well, what does your dad do? Or what do your parents do? And the thing that struck me was like, well, you see that building right across the street from the school? The high rise. He's like, well, my dad's firm built that. I was like, he's like, yeah, my dad's an architect. I was like, oh, okay, what's that? They was like, they build buildings. So that was like my first introduction into, okay, here's an architect. This was something I never saw in my life or the people that I grew up around, the people in my neighborhood. And then I'm aging myself. There was this magazine that came out called the TV Guide. And this is what you actually looked in back in the day to see what came on the TV station. And another classmate of mine, he was like, you see that art on the front of it? My mom drew the artwork for that. I was like, oh, wow. So here you got architects, you got professional creatives out in the world on national levels, because that was a national magazine or weekly periodical that went out. And I was just like, wow. And that made it seem different. And I was like, okay, I don't see this in my world over here. I don't see this when I come home and go to my neighborhoods. And then the school I went to, it was downtown Philadelphia. And so we would, like any old kindergarten stuff, you walk around the neighborhoods. But because it was downtown, we were walking in downtown Philadelphia. And there's some parts of downtown Philadelphia, like Old City, where people live downtown. And as we were walking through, we came up past one of my friend's house. He was like, yeah, I live right here. I was like, you live downtown? He was like, yeah. And that, again, was something different for me. I was like, this is different. But it made me more aware of and made me more accepting of. And at the time, because I was small, it made me more accepted by others, because we were just kids and our mindsets were being formed at this time. And I hate to say it, but this was back in the 70s. So it's not like today's mindset. So everybody was cool and this is just who you are. You're Kyle, I'm Joshua, I'm Tanner, you're Malik. And that was kind of it. And it kind of left it like that because we were little just playing together. It wasn't until, I got older, because I stayed there from maybe kindergarten to 4th grade.
Okay.
And then 5th grade, I went to an all-Black private school. So this was different in that, okay, it was still private, different than public school, but everybody was Black. And we wore uniforms with the blazers and the ties. And we sang, lift every voice and sing. And, we were taught about all of the great poets. And that was the focus of the school. It was like, we're going to let you know what it's like to be Black and how great Blackness is. And I was like, okay, this is different, So again, 5th grade, you're what, like 9 years old, 9, 10 years old. And I was like, okay, so this was stuff shaping me. Here was, I'm learning about yarmulkes and dreidels, but now I'm lift every voice and singing, Maya Angelou and everything. So at that young age, I was just given a lot of different, information. I wasn't painted into one corner. And I think that's what made me, to this day, work well with all types of people. I can go into any room and feel comfortable. Whereas I have some friends of mine who can't. It was like, oh man, it's a bunch of white people in there. I was like, okay, that's fine. We could talk to them. We could sit with them. But obviously in today's climate, it may be different, but I still feel comfortable, And then, so back to that, I was 5th grade to 8th grade. And then after that, I went to a public school in North Philadelphia. So that brought it back to, all right, now I know all of the stuff, because this was in the early 80s, mid to early 80s. So, hip hop's coming up. I'm
Yeah.
learning people battling in the hallways, who got the hottest rhymes, banging beats on the lunchroom table. So all of that was real for me too. So it was, I saw so much
Mm-hmm.
between those formidable years
Yeah.
from kindergarten to 12th grade. I spanned so many different kind of cultures,
Mm-hmm.
so that was interesting to me. So for me to when you say when did I realize my blackness, I say I always got it, but it was never that it seemed different. It was
Okay.
just me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was exposing myself to so much other stuff that it made me, I don't want to say more well-rounded black, because I don't think that's a thing. I think I was just a more exposed black person.
Okay.
So I wasn't painted into a corner of, this is all we are, this is what it means to
Mm-hmm.
be, black. Mind you, me and my mom, middle class, grew up in West Philly, lived in a black neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw all of that,
Yeah.
but I saw so much other stuff too. So
I mean, I totally understand what you're saying because from what I'm hearing, when I heard the first thing you said about your mom was that you're a person first. And that allows you to understand, like, okay, I'm human first, I'm a person first, and then my blackness will come out. I may not see it at some point, but I know I'm black.
yeah.
I think I think that sounded like it helped you more than anything, because it helped me as well. Because my mom always said, "Don't give someone the ammunition and make you seem less than who you are." That's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm always comfortable in any space that I'm in. Because I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of in the same boat that you were in. I went to Meredith on Fifth and Fitzwater.
Okay.
I've seen everybody, and we all were just one big family. And then everything changed. We didn't see color,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of better words, at Meredith. But when we got to high school, it was different.
Yeah.
I
It
went to
was
Roman
different.
Catholic on Broad and
Oh,
Vine,
okay.
so it was a
Okay.
little
So yeah.
different.
Yeah, it was
And
different.
you have people from all over the place. You don't have just people from Philadelphia. You have
Mm-hmm.
some people from Delaware, Jersey coming in. It's like
Oh wow. Okay.
now you see that some people may not have seen you before.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Who are
Mm-hmm.
you?" I'm Octavius. Where are you from? Now it's all these other questions that now I have to
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
And I think college was a little different as well. And when you look at that space of being a black man and walking into a room and saying I'm comfortable
Mm-hmm.
in any space that I can walk into,
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of, like you said, not a lot of people can say that. And I think having your mom say that to you first
Yeah.
allowed you to say I'm comfortable to yourself without even knowing, because it helped me too. And when I'm hearing someone say, "Oh, you're a person," like you're not just a black man, you're a person first, and everyone should see you like that. I think that's helpful on the long end, on
Mm-hmm.
the back end as well. When it comes down to now, Kyle Odum is walking into any space in city government, any space over here with his wife, any space over here with his kids. I'm comfortable. I have no reason to be fearful, no reason to think, oh, these people are going to look at me this way, these people are going to look at me that way.
Yep.
I'm comfortable with who I am. They don't need to be. I think that I love that your mom said that to you first. But I do want to ask you a question as far as when your mother said that, but then also that transition from kindergarten to middle school to high school. How did you explore your feelings of being comfortable? Did you have any anger at any moment? Because a lot of people say black men are angry at some times. Did you have any doubts or conflicting feelings around yourself when it came to exploring those feelings of being comfortable and not saying, well, he's uncomfortable, why am I not uncomfortable?
No, I think the only thing that, and this was in the earlier grade schooly things,
Yeah.
my parents, they got divorced when I was 3.
Mm. Okay.
So dad wasn't around because after the divorce, he moved out of this, not just the city, but the state, and maybe all the way to the other side of the country. Because
Mm-hmm.
at some, and we'll have a greater story at that, because we have a really great relationship to this day,
Yeah.
right now. But back then, he wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was the talking to my friends, and they had dad in the house. You
Mm.
know, that was the part where I felt a little different, in the
Okay.
sense like, okay, your dad is around.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, and a couple of my friends were like juniors,
Okay.
So I was like, okay, so you're named after your dad and you go home to your dad. So that
Mm-hmm.
was the most foreign part of it because that was the only thing I couldn't relate to.
Yeah.
And and then there's one other thing. I was the only child.
Ooh.
Most of my early friends, and this is what I've come to find out, just culturally, it seems, or at least back then,
Mm-hmm.
most non most of my friends, they were siblings. They all had siblings.
Okay.
And the reason I remember is because we were in one class and the teacher was asking, okay, so everybody who's the oldest in your family, you stand over here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everybody who's the youngest, you stand over here.
Yeah.
Everybody who's the middle child or in the middle, you stand over here. So everybody had broken off. I mean, this was like a class of 35 kids.
Yeah.
Everybody broke off, and I was still standing in the middle. And the teacher just took for granted that there would be no only children in the class.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that really made me look and go, wait a second, I'm different in that sense,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But everybody, like 95% of the people also had their dads in their lives. And they would come up on parent teacher night or parent teacher day or whatever. And it was just strange seeing that. So that made me realize something was a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it helped me later on in life to realize what I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
if I did have kids.
Okay.
You know,
That's true.
that was a big motivator in that sense. Like, okay, if I do have children, I want to be there. I want them to know who I am. First off, I want to be with their wife. I mean, with their mother. First off, I was like, if I do have kids, I'm gonna be married first.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my wife are gonna have the same last name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Or that's second. And then I'm going to be there and they're going to come home to me and it's going to be all of that.
Yeah.
That was my goal if I ever decided to have kids because I don't like and I understand it's life, but for me personally, I don't like my name was different than my kid's last name.
Yeah.
Or they only see me on a certain time. No, I want them coming home and they see dad and mom. And they see that example like this. To me, this is how it was initially supposed to be. You know, there was supposed to be dad and mom in the house. That's not everybody's reality.
Yeah.
Everybody's supposed to have the same last name, and the kids were supposed to come after the marriage. And I know that's taboo in some worlds, but that was just what I wanted. That was what I wanted to present if I ever had a family. And praise God, I was able to do that.
Yep.
You know, because I met my wife first. We had our children, and everybody got the same last name.
Mm-hmm. I commend you for that, brother. Because I was in the same boat with dad not being in the house, being the only child, and my mother had to raise me, and not wanting to be in that box of what they say black men turn out to be. When you just have a mother raising you. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I was getting upset. Yes, I was frustrated at times. But I didn't want to. Later on down the life, I've always said to my wife that I want to be around. Like I want to be a presence for when we have kids. But then it turns into I want to be so consumed on not being like somebody where I lose myself. And I think that's one thing that I've been focusing on as well. Is understanding, yes, this happened to me, but that shouldn't mean I should push my presence onto future kids, even my wife, my mother. Like, so it's certain ways that I try to protect like my mental health and also future kids and wife and everything. Because some people don't like people being around them all the time.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to overcorrect.
Yeah, you don't want to be around all the time and like hovering. So it's also allowing them to understand, like, yes, daddy is here, your husband is here, your son is here, but I'm not going to be around all the time. So you have to also think for yourself. You also have to do for yourself. So I commend you for saying that out loud. And I did hear you talk about, like I said, you only talked about until like high school, but I do want to ask, like, how did you navigate, even though that transition from kindergarten, middle school, high school, and then now you're the person that you are now. how did you navigate this world so successfully? Because a lot of black men, they say, do not reach 21. A lot of
Mm.
black men don't reach 18. Right now it's 16.
Wow.
So how did you navigate so successfully to get to where you are right now, Kyle Odum, the father, husband, and creative mind that a lot of people don't know about?
Um, Again, it goes back to my mom, and
Mm.
it goes back to those grade school days, because this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my school was downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to say the name of the school?
Yeah.
Okay, it was Friend Select, which is
Okay.
downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, she worked at 18th and Vine.
Okay.
So at the end of every day, what would happen would be school lets out at 3, and then I would walk over to her job, which was 5 blocks away, and
Mm-hmm.
she didn't leave work till like 5:30. So from 3
Okay.
to 5:30, I'm there with her, and right next to her building was the main library for the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Those twin buildings right there on the Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
So she'd be like, Kyle, go over there, stay in the library till 5 o'clock, and then come back over and we're going to go home.
Mm.
So what happened for me, like, this was from kindergarten to 4th grade, 8 months out the year.
Yeah.
I'm sitting over there in a library,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, get yourself a book, read something, do something, go to one of the shows or something at the library. So my time was always at the library. And she would always say, you can learn whatever you want in the library. She
Mm.
said, as long as you put your mind to it and get your education, you can do whatever you want. And that's all
Mm.
I heard 8 months out the year,
Yep.
as she kept telling me to go tell her. So I'm sitting in the library. Okay, so I learned about the Dewey Decimal System because they had a show on it, or they would do some puppet thing, or I'm in the kids' library reading these books, or I go upstairs and check out the music book, just trying to kill time. I was like, where can I go in this big building?
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was in every area of that building. I was in the medical section. I was in the computer section. I was in the creative section, just trying to kill time,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing that would affect me later on, because it gave me that thirst for knowledge.
Okay.
It gave me that, I got this time.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go learn something.
Yeah.
I need to be doing something with it. And not knowing that's what I was getting from her. So fast forward. So when I was in high school, unfortunately, my mom passed when I was 16. So
Okay.
this was 10th grade for me.
Mm-hmm.
She died in her sleep out of nowhere. She had an aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
So, or at least that's what we believe. She had an aneurysm. So I went to go live with my grandmother. And
Okay.
that was culture shock,
Mm-hmm.
because it was just me and my mom. I told you my parents were divorced. So it was me and mom. She was basically my best friend.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go live with my grandmom, and I love her. She's been one of the greatest influences in my life. However, at the time, we just didn't get along,
Yeah.
And I always joke, like, if she wasn't my grandmom, she wouldn't be the type of person I'd hang out with, but, and I think I was angry because here it was, I lost my mom, my
Yeah.
best friend, and now I gotta go live over here with grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Now, grandmom, she lived maybe like 15 blocks from where me and my mom lived. We all lived in that University City area. So that was like
Yeah.
my part of town. And so I'm living with grandma, upset, trying to deal with the abandonment issues that I have now realized I had since my mom, died when I was so young.
Yeah.
And I was upset and mad about it, but I always turn to just go to the library. You'll find something to, take your mind off it. You can escape into some fantasy world or something like that, or learn about some new subject, or, I'm reading books on bugs and insects. It's like so much stuff that I just got exposed to, and I was just like, wow. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but now looking back, yes, I was an angry teenager, but the one thing I didn't want to do was disappoint my mom, because I knew she put so much into me. She's like, Kyle, just get your education. You could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And mind you, this was 10th grade. So this was like the mid 80s. So, in the city of Philadelphia, the JBM and drugs and all of that, the rims and the drug dealers was all over the place. And I could have easily been pulled into something, because I really didn't have a father figure. I was living with a grandmother, who was wonderful woman, but she wasn't my mom, so I could have easily been, pulled into a different direction. But my focus was, all right, you don't want to disappoint your mom. She done made too much sacrifice to get you into that private school when you was little, to try to get you into another private school when you went to middle school. Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Don't be a statistic.
Yeah.
Don't do that. She worked too hard, and granted, you might have only had her for 16 years, but she put that into me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right. And living in University City, obviously I was around like the Drexels and the Penns and the College of Pharmacy and Science. All of that I was always in like a collegiate neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't around. I didn't grow up in North Philly. I didn't grow up in South Philly. I was around colleges. That's where I hung out. I rode my bike through Penn's campus. That's where I was. So when high school was kind of nearing the end, it was like, well, what do I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I learned about myself, and this kind of leads into the creative part, was I always liked music. And I think I get that from my mom too, because she would always play music in the house. Lou Rawls is blasting, Sam Cooke is blasting, Earth, Wind & Fire. She always had that on, and that was like her unwind stuff. So I just had that on as the backdrop to my life. So this is what I'm hearing. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I started getting into music. Obviously, she put me in the piano lessons, so I did that a little bit. But once I got into high school, I went to Franklin Learning Center, which was a multifaceted school. It had like 4 what they call tracks. It had like a vocational component. It had a college and science component for those who wanted to go to college for whatever. It had a biology for those who wanted to go into medicine, and then it had a arts and creative component that rivaled Kappa at the time. So again, this is in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I went in there as a college-bound student. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the college path. But because I had that love of music, I started hanging out with the musicians and with the band. So I started hanging out with them, but still doing the college stuff. So I joined a band. I was playing trumpet. I was playing drums, a little bit of piano. And I really started to find, I like this. This is cool. So that's where my creative thing really started to blossom in high school. We were in the talent show. We did New Edition. We came in first place, all of that senior year. So all of that was fun. So when I started thinking about, well, what do I want to do when I go to college, I also had a love for tech. I used to love not just listening to the music, but the way that music was made. So it was like the electronics behind it, the sonic, the EQs, and being part of the band. I would also hang out with like the stage crew people. So I would see them setting up the mics and setting up the speakers. So all of that was kind of cool. So that whole music industry thing. So I said, well, I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna go to college, and I'm going to go for electrical engineering with a minor in digital signal processing music. And I was like, all right, cool. So now I was getting the best of both worlds, because I was like, all right, I could do the engineering, which I like, the math and science. Again, mom sending me to the library. But then the music, I could like that. Again, mom playing the music in the background. So the more I talk about this, my mom had a big influence on my life for the 16 years that she was there. So going into college, that was easy. Again, the background of, okay, I know a lot of people. I know how to work rooms. It wasn't a big deal seeing, not just white people, but now we're dealing with Indian and Asian, because, engineering, that's a discipline that a lot of Asians and Indians gravitate towards. So those were my classmates. So that just made me even more well-rounded. And, you had to do the labs, and you had to do the experiments, and you had to do the projects with them. So I'm building team stuff with, people that don't always look like me in my classes. So that was a interesting time and an interesting moment. And the focus was, all right, let's do this electrical engineering thing. But at the same time, I met, some more people who look like me. During this time, house music was a big deal. Like the deep house. It was like all of that. And I met a buddy of mine who's still one of my buddies to this day. His name was Hollis P. Monroe. Got to give him a shout out. And we became music partners because we started getting into the house music underground scene. And we started, and this is way before how easy it is to make music now. You had to have some, and I'm not dissing people, but you had to have some musical talent back then.
Yeah.
You couldn't just hit
Yeah.
buttons. You had to play some chords and do some stuff and sing and hold a tune. And we started doing stuff because he was already a musician when he came in.
Okay.
I had the love of music, and so we were both in the engineering program and found out we both like music. So we started doing music. We started a record label. We had some underground successful hits during the early 90s. You know, we were really doing some stuff. You know, we made some money, you know, selling records. We were on some charts.
Yeah.
We was like, yo, we should really do this. But my thing was, okay, I like this. And at the time, I had met a young lady, and I'm thinking, okay, well, we might wind up doing something. He was still single. He's like, yo, let's do this music thing. Let's do this music thing. I was like, all right, I'm doing it. But now I'm in this relationship. But I still want to do the music. Now let's do the music. Okay, let's do the music. We were doing it after graduation. You know, we still had some more success. But then, you know, it kind of just, we drifted a little bit. He continued more into the music, and I was like, all right, well, let me kind of find a more stable career. You know, but we're still cool to this day. We still do stuff together. He has since moved to Germany because that's like the capital where house music is, and he's over there working for a record label now. Okay. So, so that transition into college from high school, and what made me get into what I got into, it all goes back to my mom. Yeah. You know, it all goes back to her. And she was like, get your education and you can do whatever you want. So after I graduated, this was a shocker. I stopped everything. Yeah. I stopped because I went to Drexel. And again, that was right around the corner from where I grew up, because again, it was what I knew. Yeah. And my grandmother lived right there. But after graduation, and Drexel was a 5-year program. Okay. A lot of people don't know that. It was a 5-year program. And after graduation, I just chilled. I stopped. They gave me my diploma. I walked across the stage. They gave me my diploma. And they put it in like this hard plastic thing so that it won't get damaged until you take it to, you know, the real framing place to get it. You know how they put them all up. Yeah. To this day, my diploma is still in that plastic thing. Really? And it sits in my basement at my house. And it's not to discredit it, because, oh my goodness, yeah, I'm proud of what I was able to do. But once I graduated, I felt like it was this relief of, I did it, and I did it for my mom. You know, because she was like, Kyle, as long as you get your education, you can never be told you can't do anything. You can always have something to fall back on. Yeah. So after I did that, I was like, all right. And I took a year off. I did nothing. I didn't even have a job. I was just laying around in my grandma's house. And she really couldn't say anything because I had this degree, you know? And it wasn't like, oh, I dropped out of college and I was some bum, or I never finished high school and I was just caught up. It was none of that. Yeah. I was the ideal person, overcame the circumstances, didn't become a statistic, had a degree from a very reputable school in a hard subject matter, and now I'm just chilling. And people were just looking like, well, what you gonna do? I was like, I don't even know. Yeah. I don't even know. And it was funny because all my other classmates, you know, they going into corporate America and they getting jobs at, like, you know, what was it, Merck Sharp, and whatever, some of the big pharmaceutical companies and the big engineering companies. And it's like, you gonna get a job? I was like, no. Yeah. I'm just chilling. Yeah. And I laid around seriously for like 6 to 8 months doing nothing. And then when my friends was like, dude, didn't you just waste? I was like, you can't tell me nothing. Yeah. You can't tell me nothing. Because at that point I felt like I did everything that was required of me, you know. But and the funny thing was, I was like, you know what, let me go get a job. And this was so funny. I got a job as a car stereo installer. Really? And it was so funny because based on the degree I had, this was so far below what I was capable of doing. And the guy was like, do you know anything about, you know, electronic equipment and putting in stereos? And I just looked at him like, do I know anything about electronic?
Do I?
You know, and I guess it was a little arrogant, but it was still like, yeah, I'm doing this because I like music, you know. And I was like, let me get you a little $5 an hour under the table job.
Mm-hmm.
But then probably by like month 11, 12 of just chilling, I was like, let me go do something.
Yeah.
Let me go get a real job. And I started working for this internet startup, you
Mm.
know, which was pretty cool because it was like right around, because I graduated in '89.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I graduated high school in '89, graduated college in '94.
Okay.
So I went and got a job at a startup. So right around then, that's when like the '90s and the internet boom and all. So I was
Yeah.
around like AOL, Disc, and Prodigy, and the advent of eBay, and just watching all of these .com companies blow up. And I was in that space.
Mm-hmm.
I met a lot of people who are influential in the Philadelphia tech space now as a
Mm-hmm.
result of that.
Okay.
Name Josh Koppelman, who's a big wig. He was the first person I worked for. When I
Mm.
got a job. And he's a big time VC. What is venture capitalist now?
Okay.
In that space, because he made all his money during the company that I went and worked with him at. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just interesting. So yeah.
I can say I would end it like that too. When you say it's interesting because when you look at your trajectory, I feel like even though you said your mother has been a pivotal part in who you are, I think she still is. From what I've experienced working with you, connecting with you, and building with you, I just think that your mom is still with you.
Hmm.
And when you look at it and say, "Well, Kyle, you just got to get your education, and you can do whatever you want." And when you did that, when you got your education, and you said, "There's nothing else for me to do," you said, "You can't tell me nothing. My mom told me to do something, and I did it."
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't um, understand.
Hmm.
When you lose somebody that's near and dear to you, the main thing that you remember is what they told you,
Yeah.
or how they impacted your life, and maybe you want to do the same for other people.
Hmm.
So for me, I think listening to you, I've always had my mom in the back of my mind whenever I go into a room, like I said, but it's also the love of family that I get from my great grandmother who passed. So when she
Hmm.
passed, that broke me.
Mm. Yeah.
When I say it broke me, it was like I was young, but this is a person that um, my mom went to work, or she did summer school, or um, she was getting her education as well. I went to my great grandmother's house, and I was the quote unquote favorite when you can sit on your grandmother's house and on her couch, and she'll make you breakfast
Mm.
and bring it to you. And where it's like you don't get off the couch or you don't get off the rug.
Hmm.
But I always had this thing when I went to the bathroom and washed my hands, I would always love to see her smile, and I would just like sprinkle water on her. And I think when she passed, her love for family, or that bringing together of family, like got into me, got into my mother, got into everybody else. Her spirit just got into us at some point. And I think that's the same thing from what I'm hearing. Your mom did for you. Her spirit got into you to say, look, go back to that library because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where you're going to go, but you're
Hmm.
going to be ready because you've read tons of books. And then it also kept you out of the way, kept your head down.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of things that people don't recognize when someone lives, and they give you something to leave with. Um, people don't see that. And I think that's the great way to say for you is that your mother left something for you that was not tangible, but something that you can strive for at the same time.
Yeah.
And I do want to, like I said before, it is getting into this space of understanding you a little bit more. I know you talked about being a father, husband, and being a creative. So, and I know you also said when you feel comfortable in certain spaces. So, how do you, when you walk into those spaces, though, do you have different hats that you put on, or do you bring in all the things that you represent into your life into that one room?
That's a good question, and I bring all of those things in.
Yeah.
I don't like to, okay, I'm gonna just act this way, or I'm gonna act that way, or I'm gonna
Okay.
just put on this hat. I can't function like that. Like, you know me, I
Yeah.
always bust it up with a joke first,
Yeah.
even in the midst of seriousness. I don't care who's on the call, who's in the room. I'm going to wind up saying something funny that lets everybody in this space know we're people first.
Yeah.
You know, let's break all this other stuff down. Yeah, you hold a high position. Yeah, you got a big title, but you still laugh at stupid jokes just like anybody else does. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so, and sometimes I go out of my way just to break the tension in certain rooms to get people back down to the humanity of
Mm-hmm.
things. Because
Yeah.
yes, this is a very serious, and we got to hit these deadlines and make sure that all of these swim lanes are lined up and we have all of the goals. And I'm like, all right, cool, that's funny and that's cool and all, but where's the funny in it?
Yeah.
You know, where's the all right? Why are we doing this? Let's get to the real.
Mm-hmm.
Because life is too short. And I think that was also something because my mom, dang, it keeps coming. This is like a therapy session, man. It keeps coming back. Because she left me so early, I realized how short life can be,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I can't take this stuff too seriously
Yeah.
because you never know. And
Mm-hmm.
because it came so abruptly for my mom, it's not like she was sick and we were visiting her at a hospital and we were prepared. It was like one night, good night, I'll see you tomorrow. We're gonna get up and go to school and work. And it just life changed.
Yeah.
So I know tomorrow is not promised. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't take life super, super seriously in that sense. And I think the people that I'm around, I try to showcase that. It's like, let's bring out the most fun, the most light, the most energy we can have while we're here.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Okay. That means a lot hearing coming from you.
Yeah.
Because even though the things that we've worked on and even having conversations outside of our work, it's understanding like, yes, you are a person first. And I understood that because you didn't have to say it to me. I just said, this man is a person. He's a human first. He's going to crack a joke. He's going to make you feel comfortable when you get around him. But he's also going to let you know, like, this is how we get stuff done.
Yeah.
Like, we can be professional, but we can also have a good time while we're being professional. I think that's one thing that I took from you as well, and getting a better understanding of who you are. But I know in life, like I have expectations on myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you may have some. So when you were in that space of putting in stereos in cars, did you have any expectations for yourself when it comes to what do I want to do with this degree? Or how can I change the world or be better for the world?
Um, I wouldn't say it was expectation,
Okay.
but I guess the reality of the student loans kicking in. Because you know they
That's
give you
true.
that grace period after you
Yeah.
graduate.
Yeah.
Some of those bills started. I was like, hold up. Okay, let's see what we gonna do. Because this putting in these little speakers in the back of this Corolla,
Mm-hmm.
that's not gonna so that's what made me really say, okay, well, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm a big believer in walking in your natural gift and talent.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is I think everybody is born with a certain gifting and talent that you have that you could just naturally do. Some
Yeah.
people, it's obvious. Oh, you can sing, you can dance, or
Mm-hmm.
you're an athlete and you can run fast, you could jump high.
Yeah.
But then the non-visual stuff, like, oh, you might be great at administration, or
Mm-hmm.
you may be great at leadership, which you really can't always define and clearly put into a box.
Yeah.
Or you may be great with your hands. You may be a great carpenter or electrician or something like that. I think, and it's the Bible tells us your gift will make room for you. So
Yep.
I think the gift that God really puts in you is the thing that'll bring you the most joy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also the thing that you can do if you're getting paid for it or not,
Mm.
you know? So for me, I realized early on it was music, electronics, creative.
Okay.
So when I was thinking about, all right, let me go get this job because, you know, the student loans is kicking in, that's when I realized, all right, well, what do I like to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I had this degree. So I was like, let me find something in that space. And again, that's when I started working with that first startup. And because it was a startup, it was right around the time when the internet started to become a thing,
Okay.
you know? So I was exposed to, oh, okay, there's the World Wide Web and, you know, dealing with, what was the big, it was a browser. It was a browser that before the Chromes and before the Safaris.
Firefox.
It was before Firefox. It was who
Mm.
was Mark Andreessen was the one who started it. I forgot. It'll pop up.
It probably, yeah.
So it was in that day, and I was like, wow. And I had a coworker at the time who was showing me how to make these things called web pages. And he
Okay.
was like, oh, look, you can do this and you can add music and all of this text. So here it was, the music, the tech, the creative was all in this space.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let me see what this is. So I'm learning about that, getting into the computers and the laptops. So that kind of took me into becoming a web designer. So I started like reading stuff and, again, going back to the books, you want to learn something. So I'm reading stuff, reading articles, getting exposed, meeting with the people who know it. So that kind of made me into a web designer.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, so I was studying this and I got pretty good at it. And what happened was I left that company and I started working at another, it was funny. I left that company and then I went to a placement agency.
Okay.
And when dealing with the placement agency, I was like, listen, you got to find me a job to do X, Y, and Z. This is what I want to do. And then they was like, well, we have a need here for that. Yeah. I was like, really? So they hired me at the placement agency until they could find me a job to do what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay. So I was there teaching them about the web, showing them web stuff. And then I got a job. Then they found me a job working with Deloitte, the big accounting firm. So I was at Deloitte for a while. And it was at this point that I met with the, at the time, he was the webmaster for the whole Northeast corridor. So he took me under his wing and really showed me some stuff. And he gave me this big, strong background in print and graphic design and why things work. So all of this was kind of coming together. Yeah. And it got to a point where he was I was his second in command.
Okay.
He was like giving me all over. He was like, make these updates, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. But then it came to a point where we both were trying to be head coaches on the same team. Yeah. And I was like, all right, this is his team. This really isn't going to work. Yeah. If I'm trying to really do this thing, because he was older. So I was bringing that new energy and, all right, Mike, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to change it. Man. And because I was doing it and it was a new thing, I was doing it on the side as well. And I was doing web design for my church and some other nonprofits. Okay. And at my church, there was one of the members who actually worked for the city of Philadelphia. It was like, hey, Kyle, I know you do the website for the church. We're looking for a new web design manager for the city of Philadelphia. You interested? I was like, what's he? He's like, well, you're going to oversee all of Phila.gov and be responsible for all of that. And I was like, all right, sure, why not? So I went to the interview, and again, I don't take life real serious. So I'm in there busting it up with the dude. Got him laughing and joking. He was like, yo. And I was like, what's up? And then he was like, yo, we're going to bring you in. His name was James Cartwright. He was like, wow. Okay, so he hired me. So that's how I made my foray into the city of Philadelphia as the web design manager. And just being there for all that time, I was like always aware of, well, what's coming next. And I wanted to move out of just the web stuff. So I was there for about 4 years the first time. And then I actually left and I went off and I started my own web design firm and catering to nonprofits and faith-based organizations and small businesses. And I did that for maybe like 6 years, 6 years. And it started to get really competitive because it was changing in the sense like you didn't really need a specialized design firm anymore because like Wix and all of those Square Spaces were kind of popping up, and people, or at least the demographic of audience that I had or client base that I had, they said, well, we don't need to hire you. We can just do it ourselves. And I was like, all right, cool. And also at the time, and I'll get into this once we start talking about the father-husband stuff, but my wife at the time, she was looking to do something herself because she was at home with our children. And I got to tell you how the guy who said he was never going to have kids wound up having kids. She was at home and she wanted to kind of start this bakery thing that she was into. And I was like, all right, well, let me bring some stability to the family and go get this steady 9 to 5 job, which I can count the cost up and know every day versus, you running your own business, like hoping that you get these invoices,
Yeah.
fulfilled. So I did that. And then she launched the bakery, and I kind of helped her with that on the back end while she ran all of the, the operations and the storefront and everything. So that's where I was like with the city. And they called me. Like I built such strong relationships after I left the first time.
Yeah.
They called me and said, "Hey Kyle, ever since you left, we've had a bunch of substitute teachers. Would you be willing to come back and check it out?" And I was like, "All right." So they brought me back, and in that position the second time, I was like, "Okay, I had more experience." And then I was able to pivot that into not just the web stuff, but I moved away from the web stuff just because of some things that had happened.
Yeah.
And I moved more over into the creative space where now I was responsible for more than just the web. I had the responsibilities of the web were now gone, and I was now in charge of print, graphic, video, television, digital media. And I was able to create a whole new space within the city of Philadelphia, in the love of what I've always liked to do.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to the beginning of this conversation, everything started with, love of music, love of creativity, love of electronics. And that's exactly what I still do to this day, for the city.
Okay. I'm glad that you shared your trajectory as a story, because a lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of people don't know how to talk about their trajectory or even their downfalls and pick me ups, because when you start your own business, you stepping out on faith at some point. You're just sitting there saying, well, I can do this. This is a gift. Like you said, sometimes your purpose is your gift to provide to this world. You have to figure out what that is and how you're going to present it to the world. But then also, how are you going to present it for yourself? Because at the end of the day, you're your biggest critic. And I think that going from just hearing you say you worked with the city, then you left, and then you work with the city again, you got experience in that big old crunch of time that you said 4 to 6 years of understanding how I can do this, how I can work with other people. So with you understanding that and understanding that, yes, the city is its own monster, but you also have to understand, like, when you're working with other people, other organizations, faith-based organizations, small businesses, they look at you a certain way. They may see you as, okay, that's a black man. Didn't know you were black, Kyle. I thought you were X, Y, and Z. So when you look at the world that we live in now and the space that we're in right now with black men and boys, how do you want the society to perceive black men as a whole? I know you said you had a different outlook on life, but I know you can see the vision of, hey, I see black men over here. I see black boys doing this. You see what's going on, but you also understand that there is a gift in everybody. I know you said that to me, even in times when we've talked. So with society understanding that black men may be a little different than the world may seem, but how do you want society to perceive black men and boys?
Yeah, see, that's always been a challenge for me, because I don't want us to be seen as just black men or black boys. I want us to be seen as people first, but that's in the perfect world. That's in the perfect situation.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I would like to do is, how can we change the perception that this world has of black men and black boys?
Yeah.
And I think it goes to the recognizing that we all have a gift, and then helping a person to strive in that gift. And then I think that helps make the best version of yourself. I think a lot of times what happens is we don't know what our gifts are, and we're limited by the resources or options that we have to explore and figure it out.
Yeah.
So then that forces us to have to do something else, which we may not like to do or not good at doing. And it frustrates us. And now it makes us to go do this other thing. Prime example, a friend of mine loves horses.
Okay.
How many horses do you see in the hood? Exactly.
Not
Maybe
that
not that
many.
many.
Yeah.
And the point is, he got exposed at a young age
Mm-hmm.
to someone who had a farm or something, or whatever it's called, a stable with
Mm-hmm.
horses,
Yeah.
and realized, yo, I got a gifting for working with animals,
Mm-hmm.
large animals at that.
Yeah.
So because of that exposure, it now took him in a path where he's now an expert
Mm-hmm.
in that field, in horses, in
Yeah.
equestrian, and all of that stuff. But he wasn't exposed to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, had he not been exposed to that, who would know? So I
Yeah.
think there are millions of young Black boys who have these talents and gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always sports or
Yeah.
entertainment or manual labor, because to me, that's like the first 3 jobs that they give Black people. Is like you sports and entertain, you run and jump, you sing and dance, or you do physical labor. Like,
Yeah.
no, I can have a scientific mind, but because you're never exposing me to that, I don't get that. So
Yeah.
now they're forced in a situation where I'm doing something I don't like to do,
Mm-hmm.
and now I might act out.
Yeah.
And now I painted this picture of this is what Black people are.
Mm-hmm.
No, you might just have someone who's not working in a gift or a talent that they naturally have.
Yeah.
And then sometimes in our communities, what we'll do is let somebody start to see that they have a gift, but it's a gift that gets shaped. Oh, you like to write? You want to write?
Mm-hmm.
Negro, we don't write.
Right.
You better make some lyrics up in here. You better drop some bars. Well, I'm not a poet. I like to write long stories.
Yeah.
You know? But then because the culture that we may be in, they'll say, nah, you can't do that. Or that's not accepted. So now you start to squish that. And you be like,
Yeah.
but I got so much joy out of that.
Mm-hmm.
I got so much love out of that. I felt so whole when I did that. But there's no outlet for me because of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm forced to just go over here, and I'm frustrated and I'm mad. I'm acting out.
Yeah.
You know, I see that sometimes. Now, if the question is, well, how do you figure out how to get people to be exposed and get to their gifting? That I have no answer to.
Mm.
But one of
That's
the
a hard one.
things, one of the things that I was blessed to have in my life was the fact that I was able to, okay, what do you like to do?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to force you into, you got to be this, or you got to be that, you got to be that. And that is definitely something that I've taken into me being a father as well as a husband, because with my wife, I'm like, babe, what do you like to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I'm switching gears, but this is to the same topic.
Yeah.
When we first got married, my wife was working a job that she hated.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was single, no kids, no responsibilities, had a fairly decent job. So I was like, well, as soon as we get married, you can quit that and figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
I'll cover all of the bills. I'll take over all of the financial responsibilities. You figure out what you want to do, because I think that's when you'll find your most happy place.
Okay.
And she was able to, that she fell into a gift that she had, a talent that she had. Now she's a creative with cakes and doing all of that kind of stuff you see all over the TV shows. You know, same thing with our children. I always say, what do you like to do? What do you have an interest in? And I was able to discover my oldest daughter, who's currently 16, she loves to draw. Okay. So, and she loves it, and she's good at it. I mean, she's phenomenal. And then my youngest daughter, who's 14, she loves to act. Okay. You know? So that's what I'm kind of leaning into. I never forced them into anything. I kind of sat back and observed. And I think that's the role of a father. It's like, not only do you lead and you provide and you protect, but you also have to observe. So you have to pay attention and say, all right, well, what's going on in my family? How does my wife operate? How do my kids operate? What are their interests? What makes them happy? What makes them sad? You got to study them like a class. Yeah. And I think this comes from Kyle, go to the library. It goes learn this stuff. So I'm like, all right, well, what's this? I got to figure it out. What makes her happy? What makes her sad? What are their gifts and what are they naturally good at? Yeah. And then you start to see it and you start throwing stuff like, all right, well, here's a sketchbook. Oh, thanks, Dad. You see him sketching in it all the time. All right, well, here's a bigger sketchbook. Or I'm acting. Okay, well, here's an acting class. Let's check this out. Or recreate that TV show that you do. Act it out for me. And then you see that the giftings are starting to come, and then it's like, oh, okay. I'm starting to see what they're good at now.
Mm-hmm.
It's my responsibility to provide the resources to get them in that.
Yeah.
Now, if it could be like that for everybody in this world, where dad and mom is in the house and both parents is paying attention to the kids and seeing what their natural gifts and talents are and then steering them in that direction,
Yeah.
that's a whole different society.
It is.
You know? And that's one I would love to have happen, but that's not the reality.
Yeah.
So when you ask that question, it's like I don't have an answer in the sense of how do we get it there? How do we what is I know what has to happen.
Yeah.
And I think this will make it better and greater for black men and black boys in this country. But I think stuff like with me and you doing this, we sit down and we talk to people and we let them know you have a natural gift and you have a natural talent.
Yeah.
And they realize that. And it's that one thing that keeps burning inside of you, no matter what anybody says about it. That's the thing that you should try to pursue. Then they might start to think, well, you know what? I think I do want to work on a farm because I like doing agricultural stuff. I just didn't know that's what it was called.
Yep.
You know, or I want to fly a plane because I'm good at aviation, but there's no aviation in the hood, you know? Yeah. But that's a natural gift that I have because every time I see a plane, I'm like, wow, I wonder how that does that. Or I got a scientific brain, but my school, they got rid of all of the high-end AP science classes. Yep. So I can't be exposed to the high-end calculuses or the physicists and all of that kind of stuff. So I never get a chance to even tap into that.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, that's the biggest thing. I think so many things have been removed that you don't even have an opportunity to realize this is what I like to do.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is black boys, black girls, youth in general need exposure. They need access. They need support. And they just because I've heard from Wes Moore, he came to speak at Arcadia, and he said all kids have potential, but all kids do not have the same opportunities. And that's real. And from what I'm hearing from you and the list of things that I just said, that's mainly what it is. Some kids have more exposure to things that are different than the 5-block radius that they have.
Exactly.
So if you expose a child to rock climbing because you took them on a bus and you went there, now they can say, okay, I went here, I went there, I went here. I've told my mom all the time, I said, yeah, you can move, but I want my kids to say, I went to grandma's house. I want my kids to be able to see something different than Philadelphia. Yeah. And I love the fact that you took it a different route and said, how can we get there? I think that's a great question. And a lot of us don't know how to get there. We can say all the things in the world, but how can we get there as a group? And I think, like I told you before, this podcast is, when I say middle brother, I'm talking about me and whoever else is in this space of understanding that we have two generations, the older generation, the younger generation, not listening to each other, there's a lack of respect, there's a lack of understanding. And then you have me or someone like yourself who may be in the middle of myself and someone older than you to say, hey, y'all are saying the same exact thing, but let me translate a little bit better for y'all so y'all can have a better conversation and I can move out the way. So for me, I love to hear, I call it wealth of knowledge in this space, because coming from you, to me, I may have heard it from you already, but other brothers have not. So if you have any piece of advice for the younger generation or the older generation to just listen to each other, understand each other, what piece of advice would you give them?
I think the advice that I would give the older generation would be just listen.
Okay.
Just sit back and listen. And as simple as this may sound, someone will tell you everything that's going on with them. If you just sit back and listen first. Don't try to offer solutions. Don't try to offer remedies. Just listen. And then for the younger generation, it would be pay attention
Yeah.
um, to what is being said in the silence of those that are listening.
Mm.
And what I mean by that
Okay.
is, in the young generation, it's all of the energy, it's all of the this is what we gotta take over, and that's great. That's great. Um, but you gotta pay attention to older people. And what I mean by that is young people, they have the tendency to just want to go, just want to go, just want to go. And they're waiting for a response or
Yeah.
acceptance from what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when somebody's not saying anything, they're waiting for you to slow down.
Yeah.
They're waiting for you to be like, all right, go ahead, get this out, finish with you. And the reason that that's done is because they want you to recognize, okay, you got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Let's figure out the thing that you do the best.
Okay.
Because and again, this goes back to my musical days. When you're in a group, everybody can't be the lead singer.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you gotta do background. Sometimes you just do the dance move. You know, so you gotta know your role.
Yeah.
And with that, because I don't think anybody was meant to get anywhere by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you may have a core group. You know, in that core group, one person might just be, okay, this is the Ralph Tresvant. He gonna sing most of the leads, you know, but everybody else got to support that. You got a secondary lead who's Johnny. He'll come up and, you know, do the oohs.
Yeah.
You know, then you got Ricky and Mike who bust out with, you know, Ronnie and Mike who bust out with the rap breaks, you know, and then this whole analogy is going to everybody has their role to make the whole thing move forward together. So when the older generation is sitting back listening, it's like, all right, y'all all got a bunch of stuff going on. This is what I'm seeing now. You should play this role. You should play this role. You should play this role. And collectively, everybody wins.
Okay.
So
that kind of goes into the signature question I got for everybody. So based on your experience, based on what you observed, been through, and seen with black men, either like a barbershop or in your neighborhood, on a porch, or wherever you've seen black men congregate, what's one thing black men, black males can do to grow together?
Just share experiences. Just give that knowledge. Just everybody has some type of different experience. And I think that experience opens up exposure. Because as we start talking and you start telling me about your life and this person starts telling me about their life, I might hear something that piques an interest like, ooh, I never knew that thing was true or that existed. Can you tell me more about that? Because everybody, I think, has an innate nature to want to help someone in something that they're good at. You know, if I'm great at whatever, and somebody show and asks like, hey, I want to do that too. I'm gonna be open to, okay, well, I can at least get you to where I'm at. You know, if I'm at level 8, I can get you to an 8. I might know somebody who's at a 10. We can go meet the person at the 10 and both get to there type of thing. So it's just sharing your experiences. Don't keep things to yourself. You know, open up, like stuff like this. You know, I don't do a lot of podcasts. And you're the one that came to me and said, hey, Kyle, I think you got a story to tell. And I was like, I don't think so. It's just who I am. He's like, nah, but that who you are might be beneficial to someone else. Someone might listen to this podcast, and if they just take out 2 seconds of something that changes their life, it was worth it. You know, and I don't know who I may affect. You may not know who you affect, but you definitely affected me and saying, hey, come and share your story. Tell the people what's going on in your life, how you at least got to where you are. Because I never really saw my life as quote unquote successful. It was just, this is what I do. But for someone outside looking in, they might be like, well, how do I get to be the creative director for the city of Philadelphia? How do I have a successful marriage for almost 20 years and 2 beautiful daughters who ain't wilding out? How do I do that? To me, that's just my life. To someone else, that's the epitome of success, you know? So, yeah.
Hey, look, that's why I get quiet in those moments, because I just want people to hear you. That's exactly why I'm quiet. Because when we say grow together, that's big on my end. Because I'm not about seeing black men failing. I'm not about seeing that. I think you know me, and
Mhm,
the work that we've done. I've always said we need to tell their story. We can't tell them how to do it.
mhm,
And so us working together is also understanding that when you said, if I could get you to an 8, I know somebody that's a 10, and we can get there together. That's the main. That's what I'm about. That's what I'm about. When it
mhm.
comes down to this E4 model, it's like I can be standing at this door, and it's another young brother, and you can be behind it. You can be behind that door, getting ready for the next person coming through, but it's not for me to go through.
Mm.
I just got to open it for them, and now they got to meet you. So, and then you can get them past wherever trajectory
Mhm.
you're on. You're like, hey, I'm at a 10, but we got to get this young brother to a 15.
Exactly.
And I think
Ex-
it's on me and you. I can say, me being that middle brother, I got to open up the door to you.
Mm.
But then vice versa, I got to say, hey, look, you got to help him. Like, I got to keep you accountable
Yep.
for who I'm passing along.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that we kind of miss with us young brothers, where we can sit there and say, "Oh, I know this person," but then we become gatekeepers. Like, we hold this information, or we
Mm.
hold. So I love you saying we have to just share information, because we can't
Yeah.
get anywhere else. You can say,
Exactly.
"Oh, I know this real estate person over here," but you got this young brother over here that wants to buy a house, and you're
Exactly.
like, I can help him, but I don't want to, because now I don't want him to have his phone number or her phone
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, as black men, we kind of lack at, because um, we're competing against each other in all ways, shapes, and forms, and we shouldn't even have to, because when we come together, we can do a lot of work. Especially, you can see it with black women. When black
Hmm.
women come together, it's magical.
It's magic.
But when we get black men to come together and do great work, it's powerful. So you can see the difference between, yes, it's powerful for black women, but when we see it amongst ourselves, it can be beneficial for all of us.
Yeah.
I do want to, before we do end, I do want to ask you and elevate you, because I know you've talked about yourself, you talked about your daughters, you talked about your wife. Do you have anything, or does your wife or your kids have anything coming up that you want to share with the world?
Well, I'll definitely talk about my wife.
Okay.
Because I love her and I
Mm-hmm.
love what she was able to create. But I do want to put a point in here about that, for anyone who may be in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
especially from the black male perspective.
Yeah.
I know we're taught as black men that we got to be the head, which
Mm-hmm.
we are, and we're supposed to go out and lead the charge and be that great thing for our family. And yes, that's true, but that doesn't always mean that we will be out front.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is my wife, she's a super creative cake decorator.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I told you early on in this story, I had, that 4 to 6 year period where I was running a business and learning all of the things. And I think, like, in life, you never just do anything haphazardly. I think it's always meant for someone else.
Mm.
So in that 4 to 6 years, I really honed my skills with business ownership and entrepreneurship. Fast forward to today, my wife, she wanted to start a bakery, and she had a gift and a love for it. And we started it together. It was her vision, it was her plan, but I was able to bring my experience in the background to kind of do the business side. She was great at making the cakes, dealing with the customers, coming up with products, running the shop. But the financial piece in the background, yeah, she had the experience, but that wasn't her super strength. She had
Mm.
a strength in it, but it wasn't her super strength.
Okay.
So I brought that to the table, and I take care of all of that behind the scenes stuff and make sure that, you know, that operational side of things is done.
Yeah.
So whenever you see a picture of her, you'll see her out in the front. It'll just be her. She's holding up the cakes, the Philly cake lady. She's been branded as that.
Yeah.
And then I've had friends say, "Yo, how you feel being in the background?" I was like, "I'm not in the background. I'm just not the one in the picture."
Yeah.
I was like, "Who do you think took most of the pictures that she's posted?
You gotta
I'm
hold the
the one
camera.
holding the camera, you know." And I was like, I always go back to analogies of groups. It's like in sports. everybody wins the championship.
Yeah.
Everybody gets the ring. It's not just one person.
Yeah.
So you got to play you can't throw the ball, block, and catch at the same time. Play your position.
That's true.
If my position in the success of the bakery is to be in the back and do these things, that's great, because we both benefit from the success of the business. Something that we could pass on to our kids or be able to help more individuals in life. That's great. So I just want to say that to the brothers out here. If you have a woman who's ambitious, who motivated, wants to do great things, let her and support her to the best of your abilities. Yep. We don't always have to be the ones out like, look at me, I'm the one. Nah, sit back and play your role and let the success come to the both of you. You know, because you'll have greater success. You'll have a happier wife. You'll have a great life. And it'll be an example if you have kids. And I've been blessed with daughters. So my daughters can see you can have an idea and come from nothing out of your own house and turn it into something. Because my wife's been in business for 9 years now. Okay. You know, had a storefront for 9 years and been successful and built it from nothing. And they also witnessed, here's a husband / father who supported and gave what's needed. So if they ever decide to get married, they're like, I want a man like that. Yeah. I want a man that can support me, but at the same time, I'm supporting him because he supported me. And he's setting an example for how this whole family thing moves together. So with that, the name of the bakery is For Every Occasion Cakes and Cupcakes. And we're located at 1821 Cotman Avenue, and that's in Philadelphia, PA, 19111. And the website is foreveryoccasioncakes.com. And that's the number 4, foreveryoccasioncakes.com. She does all types of specialty cakes. She does shipping of the bundt cake. So just take a look at the site. And if you're on Instagram, check her out at Philly Cake Lady. That's her handle. So yeah, check her out.
Thanks, brother. We'll definitely have that stuff in the description when we put this up on YouTube and any other place that we have. We will definitely elevate her and y'all work because it's important. And they're very good. I'm not even gonna hold y'all. My wife and my mom got me something for my birthday one time, and I was like, we need to go get those again. There's chocolate cupcakes. They were very good. Awesome. So I appreciate you for sharing that. I love the fact that you said what you said before you explained everything, because that's very important. It's good for me to hear as well. Being
Mr. Newlywed.
Being Mr. Newlywed and understanding that my wife does have some skills that she'll bring out once in a while, but I love to see it. I love to see that she's very creative and very artistic when she puts her mind to it. I love that, but she also loves her 9 to 5 as well. So, brother, like I said, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for joining. I want to thank you for being the black man that you are and understanding that us as black men, we have to have conversations like this, and for other people to hear as well and to see that black men can have conversations like this and be able to build and grow together. And that's the main reason why we're here. So, brother, thank you for being on. Yep. I want to thank everybody for joining. Everything that we've talked about, everything that we've said, we will have links in the description. Merch will be coming soon, y'all. We have the link in the description. Will also be there as well. Check out our website at www.urbanthinkermedia.com. You can also see the great work that we're doing also in the future of 2023 and beyond. We can also see you all next time with another Dope Brother here on the Middle Brother Podcast. Peace.